Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about two different extremes that people tend to do when it comes to training, and why both of these are bad, and why you really need to find a balance and a middle ground between these two. And I like to call them paralysis by analysis and monkey see, monkey do. So let me put on my +5 head of weaponsmithing, work on skilled at my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And the funny thing is, a lot of people get really good results by actually being close to each of these extremes without actually crossing all the way into them. And we know people who do that. Now, I would describe the monkey see, monkey do as people who just see what other people are doing, imitate it, never question it, never really understand what's going on to a large degree, and just imitate it. The problem is, in some cases, they're following people who don't necessarily know what they're doing, who've only gotten where they are through genetics or drugs or whatever else, whose actual concept of training is horrifically bad, leads to all sorts of injuries, and actually leads to stagnation for people who don't get the same drugs in that they do, or weren't quite as gifted as they were genetically. And you see this a lot in the bodybuilding world. People just say, oh, this bodybuilder whatever does this, so I'm just going to follow his split routine, or this guy I know who looks pretty good, I'm just going to train how he does, I'm just going to imitate it perfectly, and I'm not going to put any thought into it. Now, you do see people who successfully train without putting a lot of thought into what they do. And you see some people even who don't like the idea of too much thought into what you do, because they see the paralysis by analysis, and they see anyone who thinks too much does that. And I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. C.T. Fletcher does that. He talks about that. He doesn't like them E=mc² motherfuckers. He'll tell you that. And you'll see a lot of guys who've never studied any exercise science, never looked at any training programming, who maybe don't use drugs, or don't use that many drugs, who are big, they're strong, they've just been training for years. And usually here's the case. People who are genetically somewhat gifted, at least have some genetic gifts towards building muscle or body composition, can come in and just train with consistency, and as long as they're consistent year after year and they come in and train fairly hard, they don't need to put any thought at all into their programming, and they get amazing results. We all know people like that. We all know people like that. There are people like that all over the country, all over different gyms. You see them. You see a lot of that even in the whole prison thing. You know, you'll see that talked about, the prison system of training. Most of these guys don't really know what they're doing, but they just come in and pump iron because they've got nothing better to do with their time. A lot of them, but we do know from some studies, people with higher testosterone levels sometimes end up in prison at a higher rate than other people, because it tends to lead to aggressiveness. You put them in the wrong upbringing, there's a tendency towards violent crime. So you have a lot of guys in prison with maybe above average testosterone levels, a decent number of them at least. They come and got nothing better to do with their time than pump iron out in the yard, and they get great results just training and eating. And you see plenty of that. You see guys who then get out and they keep lifting. They get pretty damn good results just by consistently training hard without even having a system or thought at all. So it does happen, it does work. But the whole point being, when you take it too far and you just imitate other people, you might not be getting the best of advice. You might not be getting ideal results. Yeah, sure, you could gain muscle on anything that you're watching other people do, as long as you're training fairly hard. But you might be gaining muscle 30%, 40%, 50% faster, maybe twice as fast, if you did something a little more thought out. So monkey see, monkey do causes problems, and it causes a lot of injuries. The biggest problem with monkey see, monkey do, when you're imitating someone else, and I see this all the time, and you're doing 5 different exercises for a body part just because you're seeing all this bodybuilder do it, when you do get hurt, when you don't understand the biomechanics of the exercise, you don't know how you hurt yourself. I've seen someone like that right now who I know of. Looks like they may have had a minor tear in their tricep, at least one of the heads of their tricep. They have no clue how they did it. And they're doing 5 different tricep exercises. They have absolutely no clue how they hurt themselves or how to prevent it again, because they're doing so much stuff without understanding why they're doing it, just imitating. They have no clue. They don't know what to change. They don't know how to prevent it from happening again. That's one of the big problems with monkey see, monkey do. When you do get hurt, you don't understand what's going on. And you see people who follow lots of guys who get hurt all the time. Blindly follow them. Now, the other extreme is called paralysis by analysis. People who lose track of the fact that the basics are where you get most of your size. You'll see a lot of people talk about the 80-20 rule or the 90-10 rule. I've seen a lot of experts out there, really intelligent coaches and trainers out there who will talk about that. That most people spend most of their time focusing on 80 or 90% of their efforts and their thoughts are focusing on minutia that only account for 10 or 20% of your results. That the basics, if they just stuck to the basic stuff, that would be 80 to 90% of their results. But people focus on all this minutia without realizing if they forgot all the minutia completely, they could still probably get 80% of their possible results without thinking about it at all, just focusing on the basics and never deviating. And sometimes when you spend too much time focusing on the minutia when you haven't focused enough on the basics, it slows you down. Paralysis by analysis. You're overthinking stuff instead of just doing what you know works to some extent. Not necessarily saying monkey see, monkey do, but focusing on the stuff that is known and proven to work and understanding why. And even Arnold Schwarzenegger, of all people, said in a book he wrote, that old book he had out years ago, you can't chisel a pebble. People try to do that, and I'll give you a perfect example. Guys realize their chest is too small, and instead of saying, hey, my whole chest needs to come up, I should probably focus on getting stronger on my weighted dips, or getting stronger on my pause press, where I pause on the bench before I press it. Maybe I should work on doing that, getting stronger on my whip work, bring up my 5 rep max, my 8 rep max. So I should really focus on that. Maybe I should do more volume with some of that. Maybe that would just bring up my whole chest. Instead, they'll focus on, man, my chest is too small, but I really need to focus on that upper inner chest. I really need to focus on this little outer edge here. What exercises? Let me see what exercises are going to help me the most in refining and hopefully emphasizing and focusing on that little area of my chest. And then they waste a bunch of time with this fluff when their whole damn chest is lacking. They don't have a chest. Because maybe they can only bench 185 pounds for 2 or 3 reps. Maybe they can only do 6 or 7 body weight dips. And they can't do any dips with weight added. They can't crank out 10 reps with 50 pounds hanging from a chain. But then they'll go pick this fluff and pump exercise hoping to bring up their chest. They could have just focused on the basics and brought the whole thing up. They have had paralysis by analysis. They've slowed down their chest gains by focusing on the minutia instead of the basics, the stuff that we know works. Or same thing, someone who's not ready for a really advanced program, not a competitive lifter in anything, who's just trying to get bigger, instead of saying, you know, I'm just going to go follow a time-proven program written by a good coach, understand how it works, and maybe modify the system a little bit based upon my personal needs. Put a little thought into it. Realize that maybe that program isn't perfectly balanced for what you're doing. Address it with some accessory work. Balance things out to get the goals that you're trying to get from it. But focus on something that works, proven to work, and modify it just enough because you have enough understanding to do so. No, you'll have someone who can't even deadlift 500 pounds yet. Can't deadlift 500 pounds. Can't deadlift 400 pounds for reps. We'll say, you know what? I think I need to run some advanced undulating periodization system. I need to run undulating periodization where I rotate through maybe even 2 different progression schemes. Maybe Monday and Tuesday can be some linear block periodization where I work with only moderate weight and heavy weight, and I rotate down from 8 reps down to 3 reps over the course of a 12-week block. And then my Thursday and Friday will be my metabolic fatigue work, and I'll run that in 3-week waves, kind of like the West Side Barbell Conjugate method. And I'll run 3-week waves and then rotate through those exercises in a 3-week progression pattern while I run a 12-week block of linear periodization on the other 2 days a week. And then I'll do this all as a concurrent style training. And you really want to look at them and go, I don't know, why don't you just do a 5x5? I mean, and it'll be someone who hasn't built a foundation. They haven't built a base yet. They haven't finished out their noob gains in the gym as far as their muscle mass goes. They struggle to deadlift 400 pounds. Can't bench press, 225 for a couple reps with a good pause on their chest. And they think that they need a dual progression concurrent style training system, to where all 4 days of the week they're running a totally different training pattern in some sort of upper-lower split with different blocks and progression patterns through the different days. Or they'll run a really complex undulating periodization system. They haven't even built a base yet. Why are they running programs for advanced elite level lifters? You know, the sort of program that you would run when you get stuck at your 600-pound deadlift and you've been stuck at a 600-pound deadlift for a year and you're really focused on bringing that up. Or you've been stuck at a 650 deadlift or your squat's been stuck at 530 pounds. You know, the sort of programs you run for that stuff, people who are advanced lifters, you people overthink it and they want to run that instead of just running a basic time-proven program. I mean, I would say to anyone, you need, a lot of people who go to programs like that are still capable of doing linear progress. Not even necessarily even needing to go to linear periodization yet. There are people who could still run linear progress on a basic system and still make gains who jump over to an undulating periodization system, when they really just need to be focusing on adding weight to the bar and getting stronger on their basic exercises and maybe do a little weak point training. Paralysis by analysis, and they end up making slower progress for it, and they end up having to do a bunch of math and tracking for their programming that wasn't necessary, and they end up getting slower gains for it. The reality is either one of these things can be a problem. For most people, you need to find a good balance between these two. All right, you don't want to do monkey see, monkey do, but you need to stick with what we know works. There's no need to do a lot of personal experimentation with training. There are plenty of experts who've studied this stuff. There are coaches who've studied this stuff. There are PhDs who've studied this stuff. There are time-proven programs that have been written for everyone from NFL players to Olympic medalists. There are fantastic programs already out there. Stick with what works. Modify it as needed, and that's where, instead of paralysis by analysis, you don't just follow stuff blindly. Understand how the program works. Understand how the changes that you make to it will work and benefit you. Make sure that you're making changes that are actually going to help you. Finding a balance between those two extremes will get most people the best results, because either one of those can end up getting you hurt or stall or completely stop your progress completely. They're not the way that you want to go about things. Finding a balance between those two. Putting just enough thought into things and enough complexity when necessary to help you improve, but not stepping away from the basics and what we know already works, but not blindly following what people show you without actually researching and understanding what you're doing. Find the balance between those two extremes, and your gains will thank you later. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.